we are going to talk about task analysis. Let's start with task analysis. So what is task analysis? So task analysis is we're breaking down complex skills or a series of behaviors into smaller teachable units. I always think of task analysis as chunking, right? I always think about task analysis as a form of how do I chunk bits of processes or things that I am trying to teach my learner into chunks that are teachable. And the purpose of this is to determine the sequence of behaviors that are necessary to complete a task, right? So I'm trying to figure out what steps does it take to complete this task. And probably as teachers, we use task analysis a lot. If you have used task analysis, or what is a skill? How about let's do this. What is a skill that you have broken down into pieces to teach? Put that in the chat if you don't mind. I know everybody's like, I don't want to seem silly or I'm worried. But if you don't mind, shoe tying, thank you for participating. Brushing your teeth. Yes, absolutely. Brushing your teeth is a series of getting your jacket into the locker or out of the locker. Absolutely. Both of those things are an activity that can be chunked into smaller steps of learning. Thank you guys for sharing that, right? We use this all the time in teaching, and this is especially useful for students with autism. Solving two-step equations. Yeah, math skills. Math skills definitely involve task analysis, right? And they are a series of concrete steps. So this, you need to do basically similar steps or the same steps to reach that hopefully correct answer. Yep, definitely a math skill. I was hoping someone would say math. It's one of the ones that I think we don't always think about sometimes, or we do it automatically. So the funny thing that we have to think about is that the sequence of behavior that one person might perform may not be exactly identical to what another person does, right? So think for a minute about toothbrushing, right? Years ago when I first started teaching toothbrushing, or I was working with students, and let me say this, other thing that we use task analysis sometimes for could be paragraph organization. So if I'm writing a paper, there are definitely chunks that I could break that down into and teach, right? There's steps in that process of getting an organized paper. Using household appliances, cooking, all of those have definite steps, and for sure your math. The funny thing is that task analysis varies sometimes for person to person, right? On the way that they perform the steps. Not everyone, not all the time, but just know that, right? So I'm teaching toothbrushing. When I teach toothbrushing, if you think about how you brush your teeth for a minute. So do you get your toothbrush? Do you wet your toothbrush before you put the toothpaste on or after? Funny question, right? Do you not wet your toothbrush at all? So think about that for a second. When I first started teaching this, I was working with, I taught high school, and I was working with a high schooler, and his mom had very much a goal for self-care. She really wanted, they were he was probably around 16, and she wanted him to be as independent and self-care as possible. And so a lot of his goals at that time involved different self-care. And so one of his goals was to brush his teeth completely independently. And he did have some of the steps down, but he didn't have the whole chain of events, right, to get his teeth brushed. And so I was trying to teach him this. And I had a conversation with mom, and I showed her the steps of the sequence. So wet your toothbrush, then put on toothpaste. And she's like, oh, no. In my family, we put toothpaste on, then we put water on. And I'm like, okay. So just know that, especially if you're teaching personal self-care skills, ask parents, how do they teach this at home? If they're doing this with them at home, and maybe they're not doing it at all, but if they're doing this with them at home, what sequence of steps do they do? So kind of compare notes with other people, or even if you're working with multiple classroom assistants, maybe you're working with other teachers, you have students that are going from class to class. Find out what those steps are for everyone, and it will help you to be more efficient. Definitely, right? And we're going to individualize according to age, skill level, and just all of that prior experiences of the person that we're working with. We definitely have to think about that individual person in task analysis. So how can we develop one? So observe. Started task analysis by observation. I might ask an expert if I'm trying to figure out. I will tell you many times when I have been supporting a student who is in a math class or a writing class, and we are trying to learn the steps of how to solve a two-digit problem solving. I'm going to find out what are the steps that regular classroom teacher is teaching. So I might ask an expert or ask someone who has the skill. I might do the task myself. I have definitely done this. And I also do something sometimes called an ecological inventory. And I put a blank one in that resource folder. It's called an ecological inventory. And what it is, it means that I am going to go and watch some other folks do this task, my typically developing peers. I had a student in upper elementary age, and one of her goals was to go through the lunch line independently. So going through the lunch line is a big task. There are a lot of steps, and I didn't process out how many steps there were in independently going through the lunch line until I went down one day during my own lunch. I went down and I kind of sat to where I could watch kids go through the lunch line and all the steps that they had to do to get through that lunch line. And then with an ecological inventory or just your flat out task analysis, you are looking at what steps can my student do already? What steps can my student do maybe partially? And what steps does my student not know how to do at all? Right. So the other thing that I like about a task analysis is it can become a really nice data collection tool, right? It can become a very nice data collection tool in, yes, my student definitely has the skill, or no, they don't have the skill, or maybe they have a part of the skill. So another part of task analysis, when I think about task analysis, is chaining, right? Because task analysis based learning comes really well for tasks that are chained together, right? So they're sequenced, meaning that you need to do one step and then the next step, and they are interconnected, right? So sometimes we hear about forwards chaining, which means I'm going to start at the beginning of the task. So my guy here is learning to take a bath. That's my little picture here. He's learning to take a bath. So we are going to use forwards chaining with him. So the first step in taking a bath is, I don't know what, right? I need to talk to his parents probably. I need to talk to someone and find out what are their first steps. So one of my students, we found out that their first step at their house was they adjusted the water. They turned on the water and adjusted the water before they got undressed. So for him, we started with adjusting the water. And then we worked through all of the other steps. Then we worked through taking off his clothes, and then we worked through getting in the shower. And we did a little bit of a kind of a pictorial check off for him. And I have an example of a couple of those here in just a minute that we'll look at. Okay, so backwards chaining means that I start at the end of the task and I teach the steps backwards. So what's the end of taking a bath? Well, it's getting out of the tub, maybe, right? Or it could be considered getting my clothes back on. I'm putting on clean clothes now. It could be one or the other. So there are different reasons why you might forward chain, meaning start at the very beginning and work through teaching the task in that sequence, or backwards chaining. I have used backwards chaining for students that I had a student that we really wanted to participate in morning circle. Morning circle is an activity that you could take a task analysis of, right? So first we count the numbers on, the days of the week then we count, like, what are all the steps of morning circle? For our morning circle, it ended with singing. So we sang 2 songs at the end of morning circle. And for this student, he had a very short attention span. And I knew that it would be better for him, based on my personal interactions with him, it would be better for him to come at the end and leave with everyone else, to come at the beginning of calendar, and then to have to leave after one song or after one activity. So for him, he came at the start of the very last song, and we always did the same last song. And he came at the start of that. He would sit with calendar, sit with our morning circle time just for that one song. And then when everyone else left, then he would go with them. So through backwards chaining, then we backed him up, right? We started having him come kind of halfway through the next to last song, right? Which was about another added 1 minute of time, right? And then we slowly backwards chained him to where he could sit for probably about, I think at the end, we got about, he participated in about 50% of morning circle, which was a major improvement because he had not been participating at all. And that was kind of the end of his tolerance, right? He didn't, his tolerance for being able to sit and participate were done at that point. We didn't feel like we could stretch them out anymore. So we were pretty content with that version. So let's look at a data sheet, right? I always want to think about, how am I going to take data on this? Who's going to be responsible? So there is a version of the sheet inside of that resource folder. What I like about task analysis is, if I'm using this as a piece of systematic instruction, then I can break this down step by step. I can very easily, so each of these blocks is going to have a different step in the piece of the chain of whatever skill I'm learning. Maybe, or I'm teaching. Maybe I'm teaching 2-digit math. Maybe I'm teaching teeth brushing, self-care skills. Maybe I'm teaching cooking. Lots of different activities could be taught through task analysis. And the nice thing is, it breaks down and it makes it easier for me to say, yes, they can do this, or no, they can't. So maybe I'm having to give prompts. So for me, it's easy to take data on, right? Because if I'm writing IEP goals, or I'm writing some sort of goal for my student, then I want to know, how am I going to do data collection for their IEP? So task analysis is very nice for that. There are loads of visual-based task analysis. So this is teeth brushing and making your own breakfast cereal. I will say that you might have to adjust these for person to person, right? This one does not have, this teeth brushing does not have putting water on the toothbrush. For me, I would be like, oh, but I need to put water on my toothbrush, right? But for your student, this might be just right. So the goal is, with these, you would have them, I would have my student check them off as we did it. I might have them use the little checkbox. I might have them pull the piece off if it was Velcro based. I would have them interact with this visual support somehow, right? And it's a nice way for them to kind of prompt without a person having to be there all the time. Washing hands. I will say, I drove through our local McDonald's, and they have a task analysis or a breakdown of how to make the hamburgers and how to make they're up on the wall. I can see them from the drive-through. I've been completely fascinated by them ever since. But this website here, do2learn.com, these are freebies. I love a good freebie. So these are a great resource that you can find out there and utilize. If this is a skill or something that you're working on with your students, task analysis has a lot of research behind it that says this is effective for students with disabilities. And it's especially effective for students with autism. I like task analysis because it takes away the guesswork of what can they do, what can they not do. And I know, gosh, they know exactly how to turn on the water for washing hands, but they might not remember to get the soap every time. So they need a prompt there. They are doing okay with washing their hands, and they do remember to turn off their water, but they don't necessarily dry their hands on a towel. They're like me, they wipe their hands on their pants and go on. Um, so there are loads of these out there. If you just type in visual task analysis, or visual steps, sometimes they'll come up through that. If you know, gosh, I really have a student that we're working on putting on their coat before we go out to recess, and you need some visual images or a variety of other ones, I can help you find them if you email me and tell me, hey, I'm looking for this specific one. Another place that this comes into effect a lot of times is puberty related topics, right? So all of these: brushing teeth, washing hands, taking a bath, changing a co-text. Sometimes becomes, if you're working at that middle school or high school age, or even elementary age, right, becomes relevant and a skill that we want our students to be able to do independently without having an adult in the bathroom with them. So there are loads of support and for finding these kinds of images. So let me know if there's something that you're specifically looking for that you don't find easily on your own, and I can see what I can do to help you find it. The other piece that we are going to talk about today is modeling. And we're going to skip into, after we talk just a minute about modeling. But modeling is something as teachers we do all the time. Think for just a minute. I'm going to pause here and give everybody a minute to process. What in the chat, type something that you have modeled today for your students or for someone else in your setting. What have you modeled today? Ooh, appropriate handshake. Absolutely. Nice. Walking feet. Oh, someone's modeled a lot of sounds today. Yep, you must be an SLP aide. How to come to the table to work. Yep, that's a great model. How to catch a ball. Nice. Any other good things that have been modeled out there today? We model all the time as educators, right? We forget sometimes, calculator functions. That's fun. That's a very necessary one, right? How to use that calculator. I think sometimes we forget we're modeling social skills, right? We model those all the time. Putting their graded worksheets into their class notebook. Absolutely, right? Modeling is one of the ways that we show our students exactly what we need them to do, right? It's typically combined. We're going to combine modeling with other evidence-based strategies such as prompting and reinforcement, right? We're going to use this with a variety of other stuff. Modeling can be used to teach pretty much anything that you want, right? Communication, social skills, hallway expectations. A lot of you reviewed walking in the hallway. Yep. A lot of you maybe have came back from a fall break. I hope you got to have a little bit of time off. So it's a great time to review those classroom expectations. What are the routines? Hopefully we're modeling our classroom routines for students. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. One of the ways that we might do it. We might model our de-escalation strategies. How do we take deep breaths? Look, let's do it together. Breathe through some of those things. So we use modeling, and that's what I'm going to say about this version of modeling, right? And I could talk about modeling forever, but the one that I think that teachers don't necessarily use is video modeling, right? And this is my freebie one, so I'm kind of going sideways from systematic instruction, but I think this is critical. I think this is such a great skill, especially for our learners that like to watch YouTube or like to be on an iPad and like to watch videos. This can be your secret weapon that we don't always think about. So first, let me say, if I'm using video modeling, I probably want parent permission if it's for a specific student. So if I am using video modeling for a student that is having a behavior difficulty or a student that is having like emotional breakdowns, social emotional type of things, then I'm probably going to have parent permission, especially if I'm videotaping the student, right? So let me lay down that foundation of rules, right? Um, if I'm using video modeling and I'm not taking video modeling, I'm not videoing that child, but I'm using other examples, and we'll talk about what that might look like, then I probably don't need parent permission, right? So just know that. And it could be an up to your school district policy, right? So I would say with this evidence-based practice, especially if I'm recording a student, then I am always going to talk to my director of special ed, my principal, someone in the building and say, hey, I want to try this out. What do you think? The other caveat is that if video modeling, I am only videoing the behavior that I want the student to do, right? So if I have a student that I am trying to teach how to walk to the table, then I am only going to video that student actually walking to the table. If they fall down halfway there and begin to tantrum, I am shutting off the recording, right? Because I don't want them to see the inappropriate behavior. I want them to see exactly the behavior that I want, right? Okay, so just know those things, right? First, if I'm videoing students, I need permission, or at least I need to run it past administrators. Second, I'm only videoing the pieces of behavior that I want the student to engage in. It would not be appropriate to video a student in a tantrum and say, I have seen this happen, not in your all's area, thank God. But I have seen this happen to where a teacher thought they were using video modeling appropriately, and they videoed the student having a very large tantrum. And then they showed the video to the student once the tantrum was done to tell the student, don't act this way. This is not what you do. So that is not an evidence-based practice, right? So just want to establish some clear boundaries for all of us before we go forward with video modeling. And I say all of that to say, this can be a really great strategy when you use it right. So, and I know you guys will get it right. And there's a few options for ways that we can work around. Okay, so video modeling essentially is recording. And the other thing you need to think about is what are you recording on? I personally would not record on my personal phone. Right? I'm not going to record a student on my personal phone ever, or my personal device at all. I might use a Chromebook if I could record through the camera. I might use a school-based iPad or tablet. Those would all be appropriate, right? But personally, for me, I would not use my personal device to record a student ever, just because there's so many legal ramifications that you can get into. So note that, right? So obviously you have to have a way to show the video, right? The way that video modeling works is that there's a few options. You can record the student if you have permission, right? You can record another student. If that student is not, if it's going to be very difficult to get your target child to engage in the behavior that you want them to do, then I have definitely used other kids, right? And you're going to show that learner what you want, exactly what you want the targeted behavior to look like. And you're going to show this to them once you get it recorded. You're going to show it to them before they need to engage in the behavior. And I know it's as clear as mud right now, but I'll promise it'll get clear. Okay, so general steps is you're going to record a video, and I am going to give you today a couple of good websites that have a lot of video models already made with other students for self-help and self-care skills. I will say always watch them before you show students, just because they're on YouTube, and unfortunately people sometimes can tamper with videos, right, for safety's sake. But I've been on these sites for about 5 years, and they have always been high quality, very accurate, safe videos to share with students. You're going to play the video before the learner. So if I was teaching a child to tie their shoes, right? Then I could, and we're going to watch a video of that in a few minutes. I could record a video of myself. Maybe I'm just showing my hands and the shoe. I could have another child who does know how to tie their shoe. I could use them as my video model. Or I could target my student who is learning, and I could prompt them through the steps so that they're seeing their self tie the shoes. It just depends on what I'm trying to teach. I have used video modeling for a thousand different things, right? And there are some basic types, right? Basic video modeling, which means you're just it could be a variety of different people. Self video modeling means that you're video modeling your target student, the one that you're trying to teach something to, or it could be point of view modeling. And we're gonna see all of these here in a few minutes. One of my favorite video modeling examples that we've done is, I'll share this with you. So maybe it'll be, I feel like I'm making this be confusing, more confusing than it is today. So I worked with a young class, I want to say preschool, kindergarten age classroom. And every year she was spending, so we know in a regular classroom day, about 40 to 50% of anyone's classroom day is spent on everyday routines. So lining up, sharpening pencil, going to the bathroom, changing classrooms. We spend about half of a student's instructional day in those everyday routines, right? So I worked with a kindergarten teacher, and she had a high population of students with disabilities. And so she was spending a lot of her day reminding students of how to line up, how to ask, get a drink of water, all of those everyday routines that kindergartners need to do, how to hang up your backpack, how to sit in your chair, like all of those everyday routines that we need kids to just be able to do, right? And they're the things that we teach at the beginning of the year. And then we get busy and we're trying to teach them 1 million other things that we need to teach. So I talked with the teacher and we talked about video modeling. And so we got what we called her star students. And so at the end of the year, and it was kind of late in the year when we decided to do this, the last month of school, she got permission. She sent home a permission slip with all of her students and said, we want to use video modeling. We're going to call this our star students. And we would like to potentially feature your child in videos to teach the next year's students all of our classroom routines. And she listed out the routines that they were targeting: how to walk through the lunch line, how to sit at the lunch table, how to sit at your chair. Like, just think about your everyday classroom routines that you have to teach all the time. And these could be for any age, right? We teach routines in high school as well. So she got permission. Most of the parents said, "Oh, that sounds like fun, great." So at the end of the year, we spent about off and on for a month, not all the time, right? On good days, we would take 5 minutes and get a video of the kids walking nicely down the hallway to get a drink of water. We would take a video, a quick 1 minute video of the kids are sitting at their table. They're all four legs of the chair on the floor. Look, here is a video of what this looks like. This is what you should look like sitting at your table. Here is kindergarten students walking through the lunch line. This is what you should do when you go through the lunch line. So over the summer, we made, we put the whole video together, which takes a little bit of skill in the video editing, right? But there are so many free video editors out there that pretty much almost anyone could do this. So we kind of video clipped those pieces together. And then at the start of the next year, she used that video. The total length of the video became about, it was about 7 minutes, and it was on a loop. So it became a part of her bell ringer. A lot of times when you come into school, they're watching cartoons, especially when they come in at like 7:30, 7:10. They're doing bell work and they are doing things, but the teacher's got just some random video up on the screen, which is fine. But we started targeting at least the first month of school. We did it the first week of school. We played that video every day. And then we started playing it every week after that. We played it at least 2 days a week, she would have that video of a reminder of, hey, here are last year's students, and here is what you need to do. Here's how you should sharpen your pencil. Here's how you get a drink of water. And what we saw was the kids were much more successful. They got to see other students as a model, right? So the previous year's kindergarten students perform all of these basic everyday routines that we needed them to do. And kids like to see other kids on videos or their own self, right? So what behaviors can we teach using video modeling? We can definitely teach communication is a great place to go with this. Emotional recognition, so recognizing emotions. Perspective taking would be understanding that someone's thoughts and opinions may differ from your own. Pretend play, reciprocal play, so kind of going back and forth in play. Adaptive behavior, how to use an ATM. I would have loved to have seen a video of like, how do you fill out a W-4, right? Like a tax form. Like video modeling can be for 1,000 different things. Academic task, it could be reading comprehension or fluency. Maybe we're trying to get kids to imitate. Video modeling can be used for just about anything that is safe and ethical to video, right? So I'm not going to video a student ever in the bathroom, right? That would not be safe or ethical and could cause me a lot of trauma and trouble for my own self. So anything that I would feel comfortable with another adult seeing my child do, my personal child, then I probably feel safe to video model that. So video self-modeling. So video self-modeling means that you are using that specific student. You're using them as the model.
At the dentist's office, you will wait in the waiting room before your appointment. Hi, it's time to clean and count your teeth. When your name is called, you will walk into another room. A grown-up will stay with you the whole time. Okay, time to sit in the chair. You will go into a room with a special chair. Great job sitting down in the special chair. Now the hygienist will help to get you ready for the dentist. There will be a bright light to help see inside your mouth. Now it is time for you to get a special dentist bib. That was easy. The hygienist will use a mirror to look at your teeth and also count them. Open wide. Great job. This will take just a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now you are ready to have your teeth cleaned. The hygienist will use a special brush that sounds like this. This is fun, and the hygienist is very gentle. You're doing an awesome job. Now you are ready to see the dentist. The hygienist will go and get the dentist. Good job waiting while the grown-ups talk to each other. Now the dentist will use the mirror to look in your mouth. Open wide. Very good. After the dentist looks at your teeth and counts them, you are finished. The bright light can be moved and your bib can come off. Going to the dentist is all done. Look at you now. You went to the dentist.
Okay, so that was supposed to be self view, right? So it's the actual child. They put his little head on the person on the picture of the child going to the dentist, right? So that's kind of an out of a school example of how you might use video modeling. Okay, another type of video modeling is point of view, right? So it's going to show exactly what things would look like, or as close as possible, if your target child is seeing their self perform the behavior, right? So it's going to show it exactly as if that child was seeing their self perform that behavior. Okay, so an example might be Billy is a 5-year-old with autism, and he likes to play sports, but has not learned to tie his shoes. Not learned how to tie his shoes. Tying shoes is hard. So his mom decides to use point of view video modeling to teach him how to tie his shoes. So she makes the video by filming Billy's older brother, right? She got brother involved, and it's going to show Peter's hand reaching down, but it doesn't, Peter, who is the brother, but it doesn't show his body, right? So it's just showing the shoes, and that's the video model that we are going to watch next. This is how to it's how to put on socks. Okay, so we're going to see how to put on socks, but Billy was putting on shoes. Okay, so this is point of view. There is another example there. So the other example is how to tie your shoes. You guys can watch that one later on your own. Point of view is literally you're filming exactly what the child would see if you were asking them to perform this task. Okay, so another type of video modeling is others as models, right? So sometimes the child that you're trying to teach the skill to does not have the ability to do the skill yet, right? They do not know how to perform that skill at all, or maybe it's a behavior. You're trying to teach them to come to the table appropriately, and they don't do that. So you use others as the model. So probably, if at all possible, you want them to be close in age and to be, I would suggest the same gender, if at all possible, as the peer. The peer would be, if it's a boy, then I would probably go with a boy around the same age, performing the task, right? And others as model could also be cartoons characters or puppets. And I think the next video model that we are going to watch is called Be Like Buddy. I will say this, and this is more for younger kids, right? So this is younger, lower elementary, probably second grade and down. Preschool age would be great. Kindergarten, first grade, it's going to be great for this. Be Like Buddy has a whole series of different social and emotional video modeling examples and teaching about this one. The one that I believe we're going to watch is how to deal with anger. Betty gets mad. How can Betty deal with being mad? Thank you. And how long is that? Is it 3 minutes? If we watch about half of it, does that make sense? We'll watch about like a minute 30, something like that, and then we'll stop.
It's time to start. Today's the day. I'm gonna be like Buddy, cause I know there's nothing I can't do. Today's the day. I'm gonna be like Buddy, cause today I'm gonna try something new. Huh? Being angry and safe? Yay!
Buddy, it's time to go.
Darn! No!
Whoa, 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 whoa. I can see that you're angry. Your eyebrows are scrunched up. Your mouth is closed tight. Your breathing is really fast, and you're about to do something against the rules. Buddy, feeling angry is okay when things go wrong, but you have to stay safe, follow the rules to make things better. So this is how we're going to do it. First, take 3 slow breaths. Good job, baby. Next, open your hands. Now you've earned your 2nd star. Now keep your hands safe on the table or at your legs.
Okay.
Thank you for keeping your hands safe. You did such a great job. You earned another star. Now there's only one more thing we need to do. Now you can say this out loud or show me that pet card. I am calm and I need help.
I am calm and I need help.
You did it! And now you can get the help you need. I'm so proud of you, buddy. That castle was really hard to make, but you got the help you needed by staying safe.
Okay, you can stop it. Thank you so much. So I will say I like Buddy. He's a little corny, right? But he's a wee bit corny. He definitely wouldn't be age appropriate for older students. I do like Buddy for younger kids. I think it's a good example. And the nice thing is the visual support that they showed is free on his website. So you can kind of pair those things together, especially if you're working with younger learners. So I want to leave you with a couple more resources. And I'm going to try to say this name. I think it's Penquist or Penquist, Penquis. They're adaptive learning and self-help video modeling. They have more than 10 different videos. All of the video models on there are going to be older students, so they would be more appropriate for high school, definitely, maybe middle school. Most of the folks on those videos tend to be high school age, but they are free. I will say always, of course, it's YouTube, so pre-watch that before you show that to students. But really great free resource that's out there on teaching adaptive and self-help skills.